Welcome to Women Winning Divorce. I am your host, Heather Quick. I am an attorney, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Florida Women's Law Group, the only divorce firm for women by women. I love thinking big, thinking outside the box, creating creative solutions for women, and empowering women to win in all aspects of their life. Our approach at Florida Women's Law Group is to provide women with a strategy to not only achieve their objectives, but win at life. I believe that what may show up as adversity is simply an opportunity to change and improve your life. In each episode, I sit down with innovative professionals and leaders who are focused on how you can be your best self before, during, and after divorce. In these conversations, we are looking at how women can win at life. I have the unique opportunity to meet women when they are at a transition period of life. But that is only the beginning to becoming your best self and winning at life on your terms. With our guests, we enjoy the opportunity to explore ways all women can win and enhance their life, no matter where they are in their journey. Because divorce is just a point in life, not the end and not what defines you, rather a catalyst for your growth. Welcome to this week's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney at Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I'm joined by Vicky Townsend. Vicky is the president and founder of Divorce Right. She is also the co-founder of the National Association of Divorce Professionals. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation about women in this industry.
Yes, this is going to be a great talk and really talking about productivity and employees in divorce, because divorce touches so many people all the time. And, you know, we're having resources as far as how to do this and go through it and, you know, maintain your sanity is important.
It's hard. It's no joke. I mean, we'll get into this and dive into it, but it's not only expensive for the person going through it, it's ridiculously expensive for the company they work for.
Yes, that is so true. And I love what you're doing with that, which let's tell our listeners, because, tell us a little bit about what you do and your business and how you got there.
Oh, terrific. I would love to. So, I started the National Association of Divorce Professionals, over a decade ago, with the intention of trying to get all of the players, because as you know, it really takes a team. It takes a village to get somebody through that process. And what I wanted to do was really get all of those players together so that they could learn from each other. And not only that, like just really understand where they intersect with other industries and it impacts this family. So I decided to do that. And in doing all of that, and I was responsible for a lot of the education there. And part of that education was really learning about the impact that divorce has on employees, on their productivity, and how they show up at work and how they affect other team members. So I left the NADP just over almost 2.5 years ago now, and started Divorce Right with the intention of helping an employee make better decisions as they're moving through this process, help them find the right team members for their family and for their situation, so that they can have a more streamlined and effective divorce process without draining their finances and leaving their emotional and mental health more intact than it has been in the past. And then, the upside to that, to the companies that they work for, is they have an employee that is productive, engaged, and is capable of being a really fully productive employee, and making a difference in their company.
Now that is so amazing. I know, so needed. What a great niche a need you have found to fill. And so then the question is, like, how does that intersect with family law? As far as, do we, as the attorneys, know about this? Are you more focused on the businesses providing this to their employees?
because this is a great resource. And until we found you, we did not know that this
Yeah, it's
existed.
really, since we're kind of new, 2.5 years in, it's not surprising that you don't. So hopefully we're using platforms just like this to get the word out. And how we are spreading the word is just really working in the HR benefit space. So if anybody out there that's listening happens to be in the HR benefit space or total wellness in your company, or know somebody that is, we would love nothing more than to talk to them, because we really want to support your employees so that they don't, it's really, as you know, it's really easy to mess this up. Really easy to get lost in the cycle of just unending issues that may not be being solved correctly, right, on your behalf. So our goal is to really connect them to the people that can help them get through this in the best way possible.
And what, well, are there other options? Because I was going to say, what's different about what you do in divorce right? But I mean, is there anything else out there for folks?
No, yeah, right now there's not. I'm sure that after this, and that there will be, but it has been the challenges that we face is because what we do is so unique, and we're the only ones doing it right now, that we're in what they call education marketing. So we're really having to educate people to understand why just having a legal insurance policy is not supporting your divorcing employee correctly. What they really need is somebody to help them through all of the decisions that they're going to have to make, from not only what family law attorney to use, but what about their finances? How are they going to live? What's their, how do they get the right therapist for their children or for a significant other? How do they move forward with maybe their mutual assets, like their home or any businesses? And how do you find people that actually work in the area that you need them to work in? Because just as you know, not just any family law attorney can handle specific events. There's high conflict families with special needs children, or maybe LGBTQ, religious divorces. There's all sorts of things out there that need special care. And so we want to connect them with the right resource at the right time.
And there's so much there to unpack and of course discuss. At what point in your career did you realize you were going to specialize in the divorce space?
Well, my story goes back to, I've been through it now a couple of times, and making bad decisions just really became, almost like expected behavior, right? I was really, even though I had been through it once before, I really made stupid decisions. And I'm a smart girl, but I just was absolutely being asked to make the most important decisions of my life when I was least capable of making them. And there were so many times that I made decisions just to get the pain to stop. And if I had had a supporting partner like a divorce coach, somebody that I could bounce ideas or just get some advice from, not legal advice so much, but just like, what is the meaning of all of this? And is there a way for me to do this better? And what am I screwing up? Right? If I had known that, my outcome would have been much better. I would have been much better. I would have been a much better mother to my children. And I just feel like that is, a part here where it's just really, really missing. And that's why in the HR departments, they don't understand it either. They don't know how to, they know that something's going on. And that's why we created even a training for them to help them intervene so that they can get them some support, because it's just a big old mess. And nobody knows how to get through it if you're not inside the industry. So we want to help people just get through it easier.
And that's amazing, because, and that support, and I also, an employee, not that I'm in HR, but clearly, when, it's clear something's not right. But then how do you bring it up? How is that appropriate? And I'm sure that as an employee, there's a concern depending on the kind of business. Some businesses, you share a lot of information, but in many instances, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say even more for women, because I think that maybe we feel like, hey, this could really jeopardize the way they see me in my role, as if maybe I'm not, competent enough to do this job or strong enough.
Right.
And so there's probably a hesitancy to have this discussion, even with HR in the workplace.
Well, there's a couple of statistics, and that's that 92% of employees that are going through a divorce will not tell their employer until it's over. And that comes with a visit that says, I need to change my name, or I need to change my insurance. Right. So an employee doesn't come forward to HR for a couple of reasons. Primarily, the biggest reason is they are afraid of being fired. So if we can create a culture in these companies where they're not afraid of losing their jobs, then they're more apt to come forward to you. Now, how, as an HR professional, you can't sit there and go, hey, you're going through a divorce? Tell me all about your personal life. Can't do that. But what you can do is point out that you're starting to see that they have a lot more absences. They're not showing, they're late to work, right? Because now they've got not only absences, they have appointments with people like you, or they have an appearance in front of a judge, or they have to meet with a realtor to sell their home, right? They have new child care schedules, right? They have all sorts of things that change the way that they normally show up at work. They're also extremely distracted. Divorce is a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 industry, right? That's when the courts are open. That's when your offices are open. That's where most people function. But it's also when employees are at work for the most part.
Right.
So they're answering emails or taking your calls or calling you. They're also maybe sending evidence or, compiling paperwork that has to be sent to financial advisors or analysts or whatever that is. And so there's some of these signs are something that you can sit there and start to notice. But the biggest one, and probably the most expensive one, is something that Harvard Business Review has a term called presenteeism. And you probably recognize it, where you're physically there, but you are as emotionally checked out as you possibly could be. You're daydreaming. You are absolutely checked out. And that is a very, very expensive thing for a business owner to recognize, because you're physically there. You're just not engaged. And then another really expensive part of divorce for employers is that 10% of them quit. 10% of your divorcing employees leave their job. The number one reason is they felt that they were not supported or cared for during this time of their crisis. So, getting your employees support. So how do you start to recognize these things? And you might want to, and you can only really talk to them about their productivity or about their excessive absences, unexpected need to leave early. Those are the types of things that an employer can bring to their attention and say, is there something else going on that maybe, you'd like to share? Other than that, that's about the extent of it. And if your employee feels safe and secure and cared for, they can come through and say, I'm sorry, I'm going through a divorce. And at that point, you have a decision. Do I get them the support that they need, because this is a valuable employee to our organization? Or do I roll my eyes and make them feel like the undervalued employee that you feel that they are? So you have a couple of choices there. So, taking care of your employees is in this process, as uncomfortable as our conversation is, it's really critical, because there was a study, it was by a company called Family Innovations. It's probably about 10 or 15 years old by now. But they showed in this, and it's a very extensive study. I have it for anybody that would like it, and I'm happy to send it to them. But back 10, 15 years ago, that divorce, the loss of productivity from divorce costs our country, our corporations and our government agencies over $300 billion a year in lost productivity. Billion with a B.
Wow.
300. Think about that. So it has an enormous effect on our corporate profits, government, support systems like WIC programs and housing support, after school care. It's a very, very expensive undertaking when it's not handled with kindness and care. So that's what we want to help. We want to help get these families through with as little damage to everybody as possible.
Yes, and obviously losing your job is disruptive, affects you financially, and then it just one more change on top of all the other changes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a money suck on both sides, and including, there was a study done by a guy by the name of David Schramm from Utah State University. He first did one on the state of Utah, and that was probably 18 years ago, 15, 18 years ago, on the state of Utah. And at that time, it was $300 million a year in government costs as a direct result of divorce. And then the state of Texas hired him 10 years later. And the impact of divorce, direct cost of divorce on the state of Texas in government support programs was $3.1 billion a year.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Result. Yeah.
And so obviously, let's talk a little bit about the, how the divorce affects the individual person, employee, like in their decision making, because you talked a little bit about presenteeism. Obviously, the companies, the states, we have these figures. So what is happening with these individuals at work that is causing the problem?
Well, first and foremost, we produce this chemical, this hormone called cortisol. You're a yogi, right? So
yes.
you are getting rid of it. It is that fight or flight hormone whose job was originally, back in the day, it was to get you, when a tiger walked in front of the cave door, its goal was to get blood to your quads, your glutes, and your hamstrings to get you out of danger, right? Well, what's happened is that so that's caused by stress, right? And it was really initially it's there, it saves you, but you're not supposed to be under a cortisol flood. It's supposed to be 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get you out of danger. But what happens in the case of divorce is that you are constantly flooded. You're constantly under cortisol flood. And it rests on your brain. It gets into your nooks and crannies. And I know you've heard this a million times, Heather, that fog that people think that they're in, right? That divorce fog, that's cortisol. It gets in the way of your brain's ability to function. The job of cortisol was to shut down all of these systems in your body so that you had the energy to put every bit of your concentration into what's needed to get you out of danger. And so you've heard it called the fat hormone. I know, because you're in the fitness industry too. And it's called the fat hormone because you don't need your reproductive system to get away from the tiger, right? You don't need that. So it starts, you also don't need to know the balance of your checkbook. You don't need to know what time to pick up the kids, right? You don't need all of those things. So you're actually shutting down systems that cortisol says, no, you don't need this to get out of danger. So that's why you're just absolutely not in a space to to make really good decisions, because you're not firing on all cylinders, and that is for sure. And one of the ways as a yogi person yourself, studies show that there's 2 really good ways to get rid of cortisol on your brain. The first is meditation, and the second is yoga.
Well, look at that. How apropos that we're talking
Very
about
true.
this today. Exactly. Now, that makes so sense. And I've absolutely heard about the cortisol and the fight or flight, but the way you just described it, I think is just so informative, and it makes us understand, well, when you're in fight or flight, you don't need all these other things. And explains why your body is really not, your mind, not where it was previously.
Right, because you don't need it. You don't need all of that stuff to get you out of danger, because that's ultimately what it was designed for. It's designed to get you out of danger. And it considers the stress of divorce to be danger. And I would also say that, cortisol was supposed to last for, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever that tiger episode would have been. We were never designed to have a cortisol flood for days, weeks, months, years, and even decades over this, right? Our bodies were not designed to do that. So, everybody get your yoga on, get your meditation on, and get rid of this stuff, because that's what it is.
Absolutely. Now, how would you suggest divorce coaching or the other divorce resources to your employees in an HR friendly way?
So what we've done is we've done a couple of things. We've gone into companies where we support. A lot of companies have a legal, like, insurance plan or a discounted legal plan through, like a prepaid legal, or I think it's called Legal Shield now, those kinds of things. Which those are great. If you need a will, those are great. If you need, maybe a trust designed, or like me, that you need to get out of a traffic ticket, they're perfect for you. They really are. They're so great. If your next door neighbor's tree fell down on your fence, perfect. Your auto mechanic messed up your car, perfect. Divorce, everything but perfect. As a matter of fact, they give you a list of attorneys, and you're kind of on your own. And, if, like I said, saying earlier, if you have a special needs child, you need to have somebody that understands how to word a settlement statement so that child doesn't lose their benefits. If you have a religious marriage and you need to negotiate a Jewish get or a Catholic annulment or a Muslim talik, there are experts that you need in your corner that understand that. So with all of the subtle nuances, we go through a list maybe from their employer. If they don't have a plan like that, we go to our resources, people like you that we know, like, and trust, that we know what your background is. We know about what you specialize in, and we help. We are, for a really tacky way to say it, we are the matchmaker in that way, right? We meticulously match any resources that your employee needs to get through this as effectively and as streamlined with as little damage and trauma as possible.
That's amazing, because that is so necessary, and it can save also, which is part of, I'm gonna venture a guess, is based, that's part of where that fog comes from, and that cortisol, because there's so many decisions that you have to make in a divorce, period. And you've never had to make these decisions before. So that's stressful. And you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know who to even ask, right? You don't know that questions.
Exactly right. How would you ever know how to go through a divorce? How? You don't. And you just, so-and-so said, I need to, lawyer up. So I'm going to get out, I'm going to Google, divorce lawyers near me. And that's really not the answer. The answer is to really find somebody that understands all of your entire puzzle picture, right? All of the needs that you have, whether that's, you speak a foreign language, you're in a prearranged marriage. There's, 95% of all marriages in India are still prearranged marriages. So you have to have somebody that understands the scope of that work. They may not be able to work with, narcissistic personality disorder. That may be an attorney over here. So there's a lot of different moving parts, and being somebody that's not in the industry thrown into the middle of it, it's not surprising that it's an incredibly costly process just because you make stupid decisions like I did.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's so many moving parts and things to think about, like you indicated.
Mhm.
Now, what about, okay, because I think we touched on it, but I'd love for you to explain, what does HR sensitivity training mean?
Mm. So what we do is we teach them a few things. We take them through, it's a 5-hour course that we have, and we gift that to anybody that buys our program, because we want them to be able to recognize what may look to them to be a really ineffective employee not doing their work. And we want to show them that maybe there's something else going on. We teach them how to approach them and stay within compliance. But we also teach them subtle nuances, the struggles that somebody that's trying to get out of an LGBTQ marriage, as an example, they've only been able to legally marry since 2015, but they may have been with their partner for 20 years. Or they may have had biological children outside of their marriage and never took the time back then to do the appropriate paperwork that makes, that process even more difficult. So we kind of take them through all of the subtle nuances so that they can become aware and then sensitive that these people may have a much bigger challenge than previously thought. So we give them that, ammunition's not the right word, but the resources that they need so that they can support their employees going through it.
Now, you touched on a little bit on a divorce coach, but I think that is an amazing role divorce coaches can play in a divorce to really support an individual and making the decisions they have to make and really achieving their ultimate objectives. And that is that something that is, like, you would say you guys do for place everybody with one, or how can you tell like which person really could benefit from a divorce coach?
Well, when they've come to us, and just to let you know, one of the areas that we've had a lot of success with is in our first responders. First responders in this country face a disproportionately high divorce rate. They have, if you think about firefighters as an example, every day they have trauma, and they go home, they can't, and I'm going to say wives. Yes, there are women, there are female firefighters, but for the most part, it's a male dominated industry. So they go home and their wife's been there 24 hours on with their, 3 children under the age of 5. And she goes, here, take them. Right. And he just never gets a chance to just decompress from that. So we find them in an instance where they really just need support and their marriage doesn't work. So what we try and do is, we try and take them are you sure you want to do this? We walk them through that process to, how to tell their children, how to, what they're going to need to do, what the options for divorces. There's 5 different ways to divorce in this country. It doesn't always, you don't always have to have a barn burner, incredible shark to get you through the process, depending upon what you need. So we do a really extensive intake form on what they have, what's going on in their lives, what's their particular setting. And, and we kind of try and guide them where we meet them where they are, and then find out if they need our support. We have ongoing support, and we can kind of help them manage that whole process for them, because they experience trauma at such high levels that adding to that plate for these guys is almost unconscionable, and it's a part of their career path that they've chosen.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we, we just kind of meet them where they are, and we, if they need us, we have a virtual program that they can go through. It's a book, it's a downloadable book, a downloadable workbook, and a 10-hour video self-paced course. And that's supported by group coaching calls. And they can hop on, ask some questions. Now, we don't give legal advice. We don't give financial advice. We don't make mental health diagnoses, but we can give them some guidance and direction to get them to the point where they can make some good decisions for themselves and their family.
Now, do you find that any, or maybe, a lot of the organizations and corporations treat your services as, say, an employee assistance program, or should they? How should they look at this?
We are in what's called EAPs, employee assistance programs. We are in a few of those. We want to get into more. As we start to spread the word, people start to understand that just having a discounted legal process is not enough for divorce. Like I say, maybe great for getting out of traffic tickets, but it's not great for divorce. So we're in that. We are also just an employee benefit. And then we are, we go directly, we've been funded by firefighters and police benevolent associations too. So it's like a little bit of everything.
I'm guessing you said you had the virtual program that you are, you can really provide this assistance anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's available to them 24/7. We have divorce group coaching calls. We have right now we have 3 per week that they can log into at any time when they need it. They have questions about, how do I read this? I did this financial affidavit. I'm just not sure what all this means. So we'll have somebody on there that can help them understand what that process means as an example. So they don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to get answers to that question.
And those are those through your company and the staff, or through outsourced?
Well, we do a little bit of both. So we have over 100 divorce coaches. We have divorce coaches that speak, we have 10 different languages. We have experts in religious divorces, cultural divorces, like LGBTQ, prearranged marriages. And so one of the things that they do when they're going to come on our divorce coaching calls is we ask them, what are the 3 things that are keeping you up at night? And as an example, if it ends up that they're in a prearranged marriage and, their mother is threatening, and this is a real case scenario where the mother was threatening to drink acid if she left her husband, who was beating her bloody. So, how do you handle that? So what did I do? I got somebody else on the call that is very, very familiar with the cultural issues facing a family that is in that kind of marriage. Because I can't relate to that. Can you?
No, not at all.
I couldn't do, right. So you have to find, when there's specifics like that, you have your Rolodex of experts.
Yeah, and this is a good, okay, this just came to me. But it's like diversity in divorce, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much, but yet most of us just really do the, peanut butter and jelly. And you got to find, not that I'm calling myself peanut butter and jelly, but I'm just saying you're basic, or people like you, and you haven't had that experience of something that the cultural, or, we've definitely done, some of the religious ones that seems to be, comes across more often widely, but that example that you gave is fascinating. Mm-hmm. And really to know that there is a resource out there that can help you place them with somebody, at least just to talk it through, to understand how that works.
100%. And, there's just, it seems like every industry kind of has their thing, and first responders have a lot of trauma. Their life. I mean, if you think about the life of a firefighter, every call that they go on is trauma, every single one. Today we had the bridge that collapsed in Baltimore, right? You saw that this morning. And who's there looking for bodies in the water? First responders. They're the ones that pull those out, and they're the ones that have to go home and process everything that they've been working with. So they need special care. Throwing the trauma of a divorce on their shoulders is just one more that they can't take. Such a personal thing.
Yeah. And that's interesting, that with the areas that you can really, through your company, serve companies who if they're employees, they're firefighters are going through a divorce,
right?
You can just, support that for them. Okay, this is kind of a crazy question, but this came to me because you mentioned, firefighters, police officers. I think police officers are, larger percentage of women, but definitely firefighters. So I've represented a lot of women. And with a spouse, it's a firefighter. So I have a different point of view, experience.
Right.
But okay, I just got to ask. So but you're a support for the employee, but that doesn't extend to their spouse at all, does it? Or could it if they were working through it together?
So in some cases, it depends upon how the policy is written for their employer, but there are times when, in the employee benefit space, they call it lives, not employees. So some of them represent everybody that lives in the house. If your mother lives in the house with you, you're covered on some of these benefits. And in our case, in several cases, that is the case as well. So he gets a divorce coach, she gets a divorce coach.
Wow, that is truly, that would be an amazing benefit from a standpoint of, the employee is getting the support, which, obviously we know as far as the corporation, that does help the bottom line by, taking care of your employee, but you're even taking care of your employee even more if their spouse is getting some resources that will help maybe reduce the acrimony in the divorce and the expense.
Yeah, exactly. The to your point, the acrimony is, we can really help create a divorce that at the end of it, both parties can talk to one another and be effective co-parents, right? Because we look at this as their children are as much of a part of this and our clients as they are. If I can give them, if we, like I said, depending upon their situation, if we can give them a better landing and a better experience in all of this, they're likely to not go through their life savings, and they're likely to be able to speak to each other and then co-parent. How great would that be, right? That they still can speak and go to birthday parties and bridal showers and baby showers and, weddings and all of those things that are going to come up, and to have them be able to be, maybe they're not best friends anymore, but at least they can have a conversation without, burning the house down.
And this, as you talk, it gets my brain working, but also, I am pretty sure, I'm guessing, these services that you provide, yes, it's a benefit that the company has paid for on their employee, but your relationship with them is confidential, right? Like the corporation is not going to know any of this stuff that's going on.
They don't. No, they don't. They know for us, they know how many people have logged into and used our thing, but they do not know which employee it is.
I think that is, a huge benefit. Once again, just you want the privacy and the ability to get support, but not have that, one, having everyone know your business.
Right.
And also, because then that is going to likely jeopardize your job.
Right. So we operate on HIPAA compliance. So every tool we use is HIPAA compliant. And so we try, we value their confidentiality.
Mhm.
You
Which
know?
I think, yeah, that's amazing and so important. And because when you're going through a divorce, right, everything is just like out in front of the judge, at least. And there is so much. And to keep your job, like to have support from your job, but yet know that it's confidential, I think is a big selling point because, of course, no one's going to want to engage if they're worried that
Right.
it's going to
Absolutely.
get back to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. They wouldn't. So yeah, this is nobody else's business but ours and theirs. And everything is confidential.
Now, we talked about when it's just one employee, but that policy covers, whoever else is in the house. But I'm sure there have been situations where both the couple work for the same company. How does that work? I would imagine that could happen often.
That does happen. We have not had it happen yet.
Okay.
Like, Lord, please. But we do have that. And we do have, I guess we'll cross that bridge, but again, we'll have a confidentiality and, our coaches, depending upon who they are and the area of specialty, but we typically have several that are within, believe it or not, I actually do have several people that are experts in prearranged marriages.
Yeah. Amazing.
Right. So, that's not outside of our ability to find and connect the right people with the right resources.
Yeah, so that well, I'm sure it will. The more you grow and the more businesses that begin to, you're going to have the ones where they're working together, but clearly you will be prepared for that.
Right.
I know.
Yes. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, because you've been in the divorce space for quite some time. And just because, this is Women Winning Divorce, and our firm represents women only. But I do, I'd like to ask you, just your experience in working with men versus women and how that's different, and if you alter your approach, if at all, when you're working with women versus men.
What was, because I had only had experience mostly myself with women, and now working with the first responder community. Obviously, I'm working with a lot more men than I had ever known. And I've actually been surprised at how really emotional the men are in this process, whether it's something that they caused or didn't. I find that, the men take it a little harder. That's the way I see it. It's just been my experience, but I really see that the men take it a little bit harder.
Well, I think in a lot of ways that that in my experience, many times by the time the woman, she gets to this decision, she's had a lot of conversations, but in her head, right? And I don't mean in a bad way, but he hasn't been privy to that. And of course, speaking just for myself, of course, we're like, well, you should have known, right? You should have picked up on this, right? Is what they think. But they're done. Whereas not always, I think, when a man files for divorce, they just operate differently, right? They're not always necessarily done like it. They just, they could have made it more impulsively or whatnot. But more often than not, if the woman is initiating it, and it can sometimes blindside the man. Although, most people would say, well, they should have picked up on it, but men don't really do that. I don't.
Right. Exactly.
They don't pick up on all the cues. So I could see that where they're a little bit more, and that was my experience when many, many years ago, when I first started and had both male and female clients, there was some little bit like, oh, I can't believe this. And even as me, I'm like, really? Like,
right.
All the stuff you're telling me, like, you didn't see this coming, but
I would say
they don't.
Yeah, I would say that I think that women really percolate over it for a long time. I feel like they really try for a long time. And when they're, like we were saying, when they're done, they're done. It's really hard for them to go back. So it's just been it's been a real surprise for me to know that, that there are times when the men take it much harder, much harder.
Yes. And I don't see that side anymore, but I appreciate that insight. And I think that's true. Certainly. What we've talked about a lot of things today. It's been great. I can't believe our time has gone by as quickly as it has. But I would, love to, I ask all of our guests usually, to impart on our listeners, what you've learned, about divorce and working with women, throughout your career.
Well, probably what I had just said to you just now was that women tend to process it for a longer period of time, giving it our best go, trying to make the best of it. But like I said, when they're done, when we are done, we're done. And going backwards is usually just not an option for us. And that, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway. I think that what I do wish that women would know is that there is support for you. I know that had I had a divorce coach in my corner, I know my results would have been better. I know that I would have made wiser decisions. I made decisions to get out of pain, right? And that doesn't seem to be the right way to go most of the time. So, I just feel like there is this career that's come up since I went through it that is now available that will save you time, save you money, save you a lot of heartache and a lot of questioning, and then, just kind of set you up for a brighter future.
That is wonderful. And it's true because there are, and that's why, I love doing this show, because we just meet more people and we learn things and our listeners can learn. Most importantly, they're not alone, and there are a lot of resources out there.
There really are. There really are. And you're one of them. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. Lastly, where can our listeners find you for more information and resources?
Well, awesome. So we have a website for HR and benefits brokers, total wellness providers. It's divorcerightInc.com. And then we have one for consumers, which is divorcerightcoaching.com. Oh. And I'd love to hear from any of you. I have studies after studies, and we're happy to do any sort of information that you need. If this is something that you want to bring to your employees, we're more than happy to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vicky. And for our listeners, we will have those links in our show notes so that you can quickly go check those resources out. And again, Vicky, we really appreciate having you today on our show to discuss supporting employees through divorce, and really for our listeners to maybe get validated on how much divorce does affect you when you are, working.
It really does. But thank you so much for having me. It's always just such a delight to learn from people like you too. And I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And listeners, if someone you know or yourself is going through a divorce or is thinking about divorce, please reach out to us at FloridaWomen'sLawGroup.com or join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. Links will be in the episode description. And as always, we would love your feedback on the show and comments. And if you've enjoyed the show, please share it or provide us with a 5-star review. Thank you for listening. Are you facing the challenges of divorce and feeling overwhelmed? Introducing Divorce 101, your essential online course designed to empower you through the divorce process. I'm Heather Quick, attorney and CEO at Florida Women's Law Group. Gain confidence and clarity with expert guidance on legalities, financial considerations, and your emotional well-being. We believe in empowering you to navigate this journey with strength and knowledge. Enroll in Divorce 101 today and take control of your future. As a valued podcast listener, you will get $100 off the course. So please see the show notes for the promo code and the link. You can also find out more at FloridaWomen'sLawGroup.com or always call us at 904-567-0121. Divorce for women, by women.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Women Winning Divorce. My goal is to elevate your life and the way you are thinking so that you are best equipped to win at life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. And I would love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social and join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We want to bring you content that helps move your life forward. Women Winning Divorce is the place for an elevated conversation on how women can thrive during times of adversity in order to live their best life.